Welcome to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends. This is where I get to chat with people who I've connected with over the years in the world of arts and entertainment. And today I'm glad to have back on the show author and record store manager Robert Lawson. Welcome back to the show, Robert.
Good to see you again, Tommy.
Likewise. So we don't get to talk very often, but when we do, it's usually because you have a brand new book. And once again, that's the case. So today we're going to talk about your brand new book about Stevie Van Zandt, otherwise known as Little Stevie. And his story is captured in your new book called Solidarity Forever. So what inspired you to come up with this one?
I've been a huge fan of his for years and years, ever since I was in high school. And I was just kind of looking for a new project that I could write about. It had to be something that I care enough about to spend a few years of my life. And I didn't know if there'd be that much of a market for this one, but I already have just kind of so much raw data and research on him because I am like obsessed with him that I thought it might be pretty easy to at least get the foundation of it put together. So so that was kind of the main thing, that it would just be, and also interesting to me, it's being a hardcore fan, but to find out what don't I know about him? What new stuff would I be able to uncover with my research? So it was kind of a labor of love, and also just sort of made sense of, where I'm at, being a huge fan of his, for his entire career.
Right. Now, I mentioned in the introduction here that you work in a record store. So, and you've been at it for a long time, around 20 years. So that's got to give you some added insight to the artist.
Well, I first started working in record stores actually in '86. So I've been with Sam the Record Man for years. I was with Tower Records for years. I worked for Tower in Sacramento, California for a few years. And I've been now in my current job, Sunrise, for yeah, almost 20 years. So talking about music is just like a big part of my daily life, whether I'm at work or if I'm at home talking with you.
Right. Now, I know we're talking about the new Solidarity Forever book and Little Steven, but I remember for some time that record stores like Sunrise and HMV and Sam used to have artist appearances in the stores and unplugged performances. Were there any of those that particularly stuck out in your mind over the years?
Yeah, we had some great ones. When I was at Tower, we had Alejandro Escovedo. I think we had him twice. That was great. When I was with Sam the Record Man, we actually had Tony Bennett
Wow.
uh, perform, and I think it was shortly after he had won his first Grammy, or maybe he had other Grammys. Now I don't remember, but he had a Grammy, I think, for his Unplugged album, and it was just him and his pianist. Uh, and they only did like 20 minutes or something. He was already pretty old at that point. That was a great one. There's quite a few because yeah, back in the day, that was kind of a regular thing that we would have. Sometimes they would just do signings. Meatloaf did a signing, and he was a really, really great, kind of down to earth guy. Um, but for performances, yeah, Alejandro Escovedo would be up there. Tony Bennett was really interesting. Um, in the States, we had when I worked in Sacramento at Tower Records, and we had Timothy B. Schmidt,
Hmm.
and he had covered a Bob Dylan song on his new solo album, and the but Dylan hadn't released it yet, and Billy Joel also covered it the same month that the Timothy B. Schmidt version came out. And when we were kind of in the back room before it was time, he was going to just do a couple of songs and then sign autographs. I asked him about it, like, how is it that both you and Billy Joel are both covering a Dylan song that's never even been released yet? And he just like brushed it off. He said, "Oh, a lot of people covered Bob Dylan songs." And I said, no, but that's not what I'm saying. The song's not even out yet. How do both you and Billy Joel, and like at least Billy Joel was on Dylan's label, like they're both on Columbia, so there could be a connection there. But Timothy B. Schmidt's album was like on his own independent label, and I just didn't buy it. I said there has to be more of a story there. How did you even learn about the song? and he really didn't want to talk about it. So that was kind of weird.
And for those who don't know, Timothy B. Schmidt is mostly known as a longtime bass player with the Eagles. Back to Little Stevie. I understand you met Little Steven way back in the early 80s. So you must have just been a kid.
Um, my wife says I'm still a kid.
Okay, fair enough. So
So
how
when
did you?
his yeah, when his second album came out in the summer of '84, he was coming to Toronto to play. So it was a general admittance venue. So me and my friends and my sister, we were kind of camping out all day on the front steps of this venue so we could be right up at the front. And then we just saw like their van pull up around the side. So we ran over and met him and the band and talked to them for quite a bit. And then we met them again after the show. So I've sort of, make a point of kind of seeing him or talking to him whenever he's in town, which isn't always all that often, but we really kind of, I mean, he meets like a million people every day. So, meeting me once every 9 years isn't necessarily going to stick with him. But last April, I flew down to Red Bank, New Jersey, where him and his band were doing a show, and that's where I pitched him the idea of the book, and he immediately agreed to it. And then after that, we did a couple of Zoom meetings, interviews over the book, and now he's more than well aware of who I am. I did contribute some stuff to his box set a few years ago as well, so I'm sort of in the orbit a little bit, you know.
Now I'm curious, Robert. When I talk to some of our top shelf artists from around the world, I make that connection through PR firms and so on. So how do you get access to people like Little Stevie?
With him, I think it's just kind of because I've been such a big fan for years, so I've just known people in his circle. There used to be a fanzine produced out of New Jersey run by a woman uh, named Holly Cara Price, and I used to contribute to that zine. And then eventually she started working for him. So she became like his personal assistant. So she would get us together whenever he was in town, or I mean, I flew out to, or I took a bus or something to a Springsteen show in San Jose. So she would get us together a lot, and she's since passed away. But so I'm just sort of in that, like, again, just kind of in that circle from kind of being the guy. Like when he was writing his autobiography, somebody on his team reached out to me with just a couple of questions of some details that he wasn't sure about. And then again, when they were putting together his box set, they reached out to me a few times with some, just questions about his discography and stuff like that. So I've just sort of been in the orbit, for a little while. Uh, I guess for
Well,
better or worse, an expert on his career.
that's interesting because it in the intro to your new book, you mentioned playing a trivia game with him
Right.
about him, and he
Yeah,
wasn't. Go ahead.
well, I was in when I was in art college, one of the assignments was to do a fully functional board game. I don't know why that was a school assignment, but it was I'm not even sure what the course was now. Something about fun a functional artistic piece or something. So for me, it was obvious. I made a little Stephen trivia game, and the board game is a replica of this kind of famous guitar that he had in 1984. It's a Guild X82, this zebra stripe kind of thing. So I made one of those like to scale, and the pieces are guitar picks. So you start at the pickups, and as you get a question right, you move up the neck, and it's just super nerdy, super dumb. So yeah, I brought it backstage at an E Street Band show in 2000, I think. Um and yeah, we played a couple of rounds and he didn't do that good, but I wouldn't expect him to. I say all the time, and I probably said this, when we talked about the Guess Who, I don't expect these guys to know as much about their career as I do. They're busy making the art. That's their job. so knowing exactly what month that a single came out or when they did a TV appearance, especially these guys who are like pushing 70, I don't expect them to know all this stuff. That's not their job. Their job is to make the art and to play it and promote it. So as long as if you don't remember something, that's totally fine. As long as you don't lie about it, like a certain founding guitar player from Canada's greatest band, then
Mm.
uh,
He does tell some interesting stories. That's
he's
for sure.
he's
Yeah,
terrible.
it's interesting too. Sometimes from one member of the band to another, the story changes. Um, and I get it because, I'm no spring chicken anymore either. And in the age of social media, I've actually had people from 40 years ago, connect with me on social media, and they'll say, "Do you remember the time you played at such and such, and then this or that happened?" And "Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, sure. I remember that. You, I remember that.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting, people like yourself that you've such a vault of facts and history about the music. Um, so were you were you that kid in high school that was always daydreaming about something else, or like were you a studious student, or were you always thinking about the music?
Well, I was always deeply interested in music for sure. Um, when I was in high school, any part-time jobs I had or spare money I had went to buying records for sure. But also reading about music. I used to subscribe to Rolling Stone when I was pretty young. And just once I started getting into the UK mags, that was a whole other thing. You're getting Sound Express and New Musical Express, and I think there was three big ones at the time. But Melody Maker. So I started getting those from England, and just being really, really interested in music. I didn't do too bad in school. I wasn't super interested in a lot of the things that they were trying to teach me, but I don't know if I was that distracted either. Well, I don't know. I'd have to really think about that. But music was always a big part of everything that I was doing. So not only listening to music, but talking about music with my friends. And that's what we do to this day. I mean, five of us got together, I think just last week at a pub where we literally just sit around, we talk about Bruce Springsteen's set list, and we talk about the new book, and we talk about Prince bootlegs, and that's been a constant for many, many years now.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting to me. We have this sort of affinity because our stories aren't that different, other than the fact that I went off and became a musician myself. But I was always really interested in the history of the musicians as well. I'm curious, do you actually play an instrument?
I don't. There are a couple of guitars laying around here that I keep telling myself that when I finally take a break from writing books, I might try to pick up again. I had a guitar many years ago, and I used to kind of try to fool around with it, but I just could never keep with it. But who knows? That might be one of the things in the new year that I start spending a little bit of time with now that this book is done, and I can, the books take a lot of time, and I also work almost 50 hours a week at my day job. So in the new year, I'm going to be taking a little bit of time off and starting a couple of different hobbies like that. So maybe there's a bass like right here, I think that I've been meaning to pick up for 2 years.
Right. So you're more than just an interested fan of the music. Um, Good luck with the playing in the new year, and we'll add that to the dieting and membership to the gym, I guess. But
More
we all have these things that we're going to do, resolutions, and good luck with them all, right? Uh,
mine's regular attendance at a Buddhist temple.
okay,
More you won't see me in a gym, but hopefully in the new year you'll see me weekly in a at a Buddhist temple.
right. So the new book is out, and where can people get it?
It's available everywhere. Amazon has it. You can get it directly from the publisher, Friesen Press. Um, if you're local in Toronto area where I am, I do local pickups with people all the time. I also sell the book at my store, which is Sunrise Records in Etobicoke. So it's out there in the States. Barnes and Nobles has it. I don't know. Indigo isn't necessarily stocking it, but you can order it through their stores, and they'll deliver a copy to you, or I guess you do in-store pickup. So it's available really everywhere.
Do you have a copy right at hand? You should- there we go. There we go. That's what you look for in the bookstores or at Amazon or wherever you get your fine literature. So speaking of fine literature, I know this isn't the only book you've written. You kind of alluded to the Guess Who. Where did you start with writing? What was the first book?
Well, for years I had my own website, so that's really the beginning of like a lot of record reviews and concert reviews, and even like movie, essays about movies and stuff like that. So I did that for a few years, and that led to writing books. So the first book was about Nazareth, one of my favorite bands from the 70s, from Scotland. And that was part of it was the idea that there had never been a book about Nazareth. And when I was trying to think of a concept that I could kind of tackle, when I realized that there had never been a book about Nazareth, that made it ideal. And that's kind of a constant with all my books, that to me there has to be, I have to see that there might be a market for it. So my second book was about Cheap Trick, which at the time there was only one book about Cheap Trick, and it was actually out of print. So that made that an easy decision. And then when I wrote my third book, which was we've talked about before about the Guess Who, there also had only ever been one book. There still has only ever been one book before mine, but that one like came out in like 97 or maybe 99 or something. So long out of print, very hard to get, and also pretty out of date by the time that I did mine. My Guess Who book came out like in 2000 or no, just like 4 years ago. So like,
Right.
so not that
See,
long ago.
I didn't think I'd known you that long, but anyway,
Seems like it.
yeah.
So
Uh,
so when I did my Guess Who book, there had been nothing on the market for a really long time. So with Stephen, he wrote his own autobiography. That came out, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. So just another example where there isn't already a lot of, material out there. I always say I would love to write a book about Miles Davis or Bob Dylan. Those are like my two big heroes. But there's so many books about them already. I'd have to come up with a really, really unique take on it to not repeat. Or like sometimes people say, well, why don't you write a book about Kiss? Like I love Kiss. I grew up, well, I love and hate Kiss, but I grew up with Kiss. But there's a ton of books about Kiss. Like, how would you, really do that? So I try to take
or
things,
write a book
there you
about
go.
the Beatles, right? Yeah. Well,
Yeah, like how many books about them are there? Like, I mean, there's probably 100 books just about each of those guys individually. Never mind the Beatles as a group altogether. So I try to find maybe a little bit of a niche out there.
Well, and it looks like you've been successful to date. So there's a lot in this book, and I mean, Stephen Van Zandt is more than just a musician as well. So I know he's also been in some feature films and so on. And my wife and I a while ago were watching Lilyhammer. So that was an interesting one. And then we have a ritual now of watching certain Christmas movies, and of course, he's in the Christmas Chronicles. So, what do you know about his acting career?
Well, there's a whole chapter in the book about the Sopranos, and there's a whole chapter on Lilyhammer. So, yeah, I cover all that. I mean, he was one of the main cast members of Sopranos, which is often thought of as one of the greatest television shows of all time. I mean, huge, huge show. And that led him to doing Lilyhammer, also another mob related show, but a little bit more comedy. And he became like an executive producer for Lilyhammer. So you hear a lot of his music in the background, and he actually directed the final episode of Lilyhammer. So that's something I think he's been interested for a while. when he put out his first album in 1982, Men Without Women, he co-wrote a feature film for that album and the film's called Men Without Women. It's never been released. I don't know, they ran out of money halfway, but it did show at some film festivals and it played in France and LA. So his interest in film goes back a lot further than just Sopranos. Um, the 1982 Men Without Women movie has been there's like clips from it in some of his music videos, and it's kind of some hardcore fans know of it. So he's been interested in movies, and I think actually going forward, he's going to do more of that. I know recently he had some meetings in LA with some like movie and TV producers and stuff like that. So I think he's always been interested in it, and I think we're going to see more. I would love a fourth season of Lilyhammer. I don't know if that'll happen, but yeah, movies and TV now that's just another thing that he does in addition to playing guitar in the E Street Band and having his own group, the Disciples of Soul, and running a record label. And he's got a long running underground garage radio show. It's got a lot of different aspects to his career.
Little Steven's Garage, is that the radio show?
Underground garage.
Underground Garage, right. Okay. I have listened to it before. It's quite entertaining. You know, it's interesting. It's not so easy to make a living as a musician these days. I'm sure you're well aware of that. So it's people like little Stevie who have that um, flexibility and business acumen, you know, that spread themselves out into other areas. And maybe one day it's TV where you can make the money, and then it's movies, whatever. But it's I think it's important as an artist to open yourself up to other ideas.
Yeah, he's been doing that kind of stuff for a while, like the underground garage radio show. Um, that's been going for like, I don't know, 23, 25 years maybe now. And it's syndicated all over the world. And he also puts on these festival shows where it'll be like five or six bands just from his record label. And he produces a lot of these young bands too. He'll get just some relatively young kids that he finds in a garage in Norway, and he'll produce a single for them or an album, and he really kind of has turned into like a mentor type role for younger artists, helping them come along in addition to his own music and E Street Band music.
Yeah, well, being a producer ain't easy. That's for sure. And it takes a special kind of person to to have that objectivity and to be able to actually help an artist to make a good record. There's a lot of things that go into uh, producing a good record, and it's not all about just grabbing a guitar and thrashing away whatever. There's little subtle things like knowing where something is going to sit in the track, and somebody like Little Steven is definitely they've got the work cut out for them producing anybody, but he's just an all-round talent, isn't he?
He's a guy who has a lot of enthusiasm, I guess, for everything that he does. I don't know where he gets his energy level that he can constantly, be doing things. When I was backstage with him in San Jose, that was kind of, I think the radio show was relatively new, and there was just a whole bunch of radio people in California who wanted to talk to him because that was kind of a new thing. So that opened up a whole new world of people who maybe didn't know his own solo music. I find it surprising, although I've learned from doing this book that there's a lot of people who don't know that the guitar player in the E Street Band is the guy in Sopranos. And I thought everybody knew that. I thought everybody knew that. So I'm wrong about that. There's a lot of people who don't know that it's the same guy, or Sopranos fans who don't know that, a guy that maybe they just saw on stage with the E Street Band is also on their favorite show. Like it goes both ways. I find that kind of crazy.
I think that's a sign of somebody being really good at whatever they do. You know, he's a really good actor to the point where you don't associate that character from The Sopranos with the guy wearing the bandana, you know, next to Bruce, right? So, yeah, once again, I think he's just one of those all-around guys who's very good at everything he does. So, hold up the book one more time, Robert. There we go. And again, that is available everywhere that you can get books, and it's an awesome idea for a Christmas present. So that one is in the bag, and it's doing quite well from what I can see. What's next for you?
I think this is my last book. I mean, I'm not really planning on doing another. I don't have any subject matter in mind. You know, like I said, the criteria of it has to be somebody that I think that there isn't already a lot of books about. It also has to be someone that I can basically only listen to their music for 2 to 3 years. I mean, this book took me like 4 years. So that's a big commitment. So there's nobody that really comes to mind that I could do that. And it is a lot of work. I mean, I enjoy the research of it. I enjoy talking to band members and musicians. That's all a lot of fun.
All I can say is keep up the good work that you are doing and trying to get this book out, and we'll all do our best to help you get it out there. I want to thank you once again, Robert, for taking the time out of your day to do this with me. Good luck with everything, and until next time, cheers.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tommy.
Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including recording, editing, guest acquisition, etc. And check out the articles based on my interviews at 519 Magazine. That's 519magazine.com. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a clip from my original composition, The Burn, all rights reserved. If you enjoy the show and you'd like to help us keep it going, why don't you click on the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. We really appreciate it. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. And until next time, cheers.